Welcome to Big Daddy Bakes. I'm Big Daddy, and today we're going to be making Swedish cardamom bread. This bread is a moist, sweet, wonderful bread that has a touch of the spice, and it is just delicious. You're really wanting to try this one and give it to friends for gifts. So let's get to it, and I'll show you how to do it. For this recipe you will need 6 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 package of instant yeast, that's about 2 1/4 teaspoons, 1 1/2 teaspoons of ground cardamom, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 1/2 cups of milk, 1/2 cup of butter, 1/2 cup of honey, 2 large eggs at room temperature. And at the end of the recipe you also need 2 tablespoons of milk and 2 tablespoons of sugar. To start the recipe, we're going to take the milk, the butter, and the honey, and we're going to heat this on the stove top until everything is melted and the milk is bubbling around the edges. You don't want to boil it, you just want to, as they say, scald it. And this is important. You want the milk to scald because you want to deactivate some of the enzymes that are in the milk that can kind of mess up our yeast. So this will take about 3-4 minutes. Okay, I have melted the butter, honey, and milk, and it just started bubbling around the edges. It's way too warm right now, so I'm just going to pour it into the bowl of my stand mixer, and I'm going to wait about 10 minutes or so until the temperature gets down to about 110. Okay, so the temperature of this is right around 110 degrees, so we can continue on. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to add a couple of cups of the flour. I just got flour all over me. I'm going to add the spice and the salt. I'm going to whisk this together. Since I'm using instant yeast, I don't have to do anything with blooming the yeast or anything. And so I'm going to add one of the eggs, and I'm just going to stir that in. And I could have put the paddle attachment on and done that with the paddle. Up to you. And then I'm going to add in the other egg. These eggs are room temperature. Cold eggs would just cool off the mixture too much. If you forgot to take your eggs out of the refrigerator, you can run some hot water from the tap and you can put it in, and that will work, just to warm them up for a few minutes. Alright, now we've got that done, and now I'm going to put on the hook, and I'm just going to gradually add the flour. This will probably take all of the flour, but I'm going to hold back some of it, and as I look at the mixture, it should be stiff but not terribly dry. It should just be a stiff dough. It still should be a little sticky. bit more of the flour. And I'm going to put my yeast in, let that mix in. And I've reserved out half a cup. So we're going to continue to let this knead. This is the point where you will be able to look at it and decide whether you need to add more flour or let it go. Once it all comes together into a cohesive mass, it should pull away from the sides of the bowl. And this is about as much as this little KitchenAid that I have can do. One of these days I'll get a bigger one. There it goes, pulling away from the sides of the bowl. That's a little sticky, it's stiff. I think I need just a little bit more flour, maybe about a quarter more. And I think that's going to be just about perfect. I'll let it go for a few minutes and we'll see. Alright, I think that's perfect, the perfect amount. It is pulling away from the sides of the bowl. Most of the flour has been incorporated. So I'm going to let this knead for about 6 to 8 minutes. Probably 8. I'll check it. If it needs a little more time, we'll put it on. What you want to have is a nice elastic, soft, slightly sticky dough. Alright, our dough is elastic and smooth. Slightly sticky, but not so sticky that it's gross. Alright. And I could not get it off. So I'm going to scrape my dough out. I'm going to roll it into a ball. I have a greased bowl here. I'm going to set it in it. And I'm going to let this rise until it's double in volume. That will take about an hour to an hour and a half. Alright, so as you can see, the dough has risen. It's double what it was. push it in, it slowly pushes back, so it's been proofed enough. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to cut it in half. And then I want to shape this into 3 pieces, roughly equal. Then we're going to do a braided loaf, so put those out of the way. And this needs to be 3 things about 14-15 inches long. My board is 14 inches, so I know that's how big it's gotten. Pull that one out. And roll this last one out. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to join the 3 braids, and to remember how to braid, it's the same thing every time, so it's always inside, inside, inside. You're just alternating from side to side. And then we're going to join those together. We're going to kind of tuck it up. And there is our loaf. I'm going to put it on a baking sheet. And it's going to rise on the baking sheet with some parchment paper. And so we're going to do the same thing again. If you want to be to get perfect size, you can weigh it and then roll it out, but I find that's generally not necessary. If you find that while you're rolling it won't stretch or it snaps back, put it back in the bowl, cover it for about 10 minutes, let the gluten relax. The cardamom in this smells really nice while I'm doing this. Alright, so here we go with our braid. So in, in. So there is our bread. I'm going to let this rise from 45 minutes to an hour and then we'll bake it. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes and these have puffed up and they're looking nice. So I've got the extra milk that I started with and I'm just going to brush it over the top. This will make it brown. If you don't want to use extra milk, then you could use a beaten egg or beaten egg white with a little bit of water in it to make it frothy, and do the same thing. And I'm going to put this all over the braids. If you'll think back, if you look at some of my older recipes, there's a challah bread recipe where I braid it this way, and I think I did a 5 or 6 braid in that, and you could also use that. I'll put a little card up in the top of this for that spot so you can go and look at that video. And then I just have some sugar here, and I'm just going to sprinkle it over the top, about 2 tablespoons worth. This will make a little crunchy crust, and of course the milk is the glue that holds it on. If you are lucky enough to find some, there is a Swedish pearl sugar which would look just really beautiful on here. I couldn't get any because they just didn't have any. I live in a small town in the mountains of Vermont, so finding things like that are a little hard sometimes. Alright, so this is ready. I have my oven preheated at 375, and I'm going to bake these for about 30 minutes. And we want the internal temperature to be like 190-ish for the loaves. Alright, so the bread has come out of the oven. I just temped it. It's at 190 degrees, so it's perfect. I'm going to move these over to a wire rack, let them cool completely before cutting into them. And I tell you, the smell is so delicious. They're just beautiful loaves. If you wanted to give this to a friend, you could just wait until it's cool, wrap it in some cellophane, and take it and give it as a gift, perhaps at holiday time or whatever time of the year. Thank you so much for joining me here on Big Daddy Bakes. If you like what we do here on the channel, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and also click the bell icon so you'll be notified every time there is a new video released. Also, the recipes are at www.bigdaddybakes.com. Thank you so much for joining us.